Vic Kumar Studios, thanks for dropping by. The Mummy is my second sculpture created right after the Wolfman. I shared my progress on a regular basis on Instagram because I wanted my followers to see my process unfold in real time. This video serves as a visual diary that captures everything from start to finish. The Mummy would begin with a wire armature. I then filled the empty spaces with aluminum foil. I kept my Wolfman sculpture close by to maintain a similar scale. The next step involved achieving the desired body positioning before applying original Sculpting to add some bulk. Once everything was completely covered, it was time to pop it into the oven for my first bake before moving on to the next step. I was concerned that sculpting the toes directly onto the foot might result in them falling off in the future. So I decided to first strengthen it with wire armature and then apply the same process to the other foot. There were a few spots around the legs that I felt required smoothing out. I should note that at this point I am using Super Sculpty Firm. Full disclosure, my sculpture is based on an Ace of Clay video titled The Mummy. In his video, he uses techniques that uses a pasta maker to achieve the mummy wrapping. I will put a link to his video in my description below. I have adopted this technique for my own sculpture. I do use +3 reading glasses when I sculpt, as I like to get very close on the details, and that magnification works perfectly for my needs. My plan was to sculpt the 2 feet differently. I decided to sculpt one foot with all 4 toes, and the other foot would only show the big toe coming through the wraps. Continuing the wrap technique up his legs and waist, I made sure that each wrap was distinct. Once I began to see a pattern, I paused and switched the wrapping in a different direction. It had to look organic. At this point, I had baked my sculpture for the second time. The bottom half was now complete, and now it was time to focus on the hands. Starting once again with the wire armature followed by aluminum foil. Next, I started using Super Sculpty Firm clay. At this stage, I thought it would be smart to grab a ball of aluminum foil to get a rough idea of the body's proportions. There was no point in sculpting the whole hands just to cover them up later, so I concentrated only on the parts I knew I would actually be sculpting. With both hands complete, it was now time to finish the rest of the body using the wrapping technique. Add in the fine details and take another trip to the oven before focusing on the head sculpt. I began by using Ace of Clay's head sculpt as my reference. If I followed his video, I had a template to a finished head. Eventually, I made a choice to move away from his design and focus on my own original concept. Referring to my illustrations, I elongated the face and sharpened the nose with the mouth slightly open. I would keep the eyes the same with one open and one shut. Next, I attached the head to the body. Once I was happy with the head's placement, I filled the neck with clay and began to wrap the head. A side view illustrating the way art can imitate life. The final touch is the detailing of the face. Here's the before and after. My mummy sculpture is finally complete. I was so happy with how it turned out that I thought about leaving it unpainted. But then I came to my senses and started getting ready for part 2, painting. I wanted the wraps to have a naturally aged, decayed appearance. I began with a white base, followed by a yellow wash. After that, I applied brown around the edges of each wrap to enhance the sculpt.
Initially, I chose gray for the skin, but I quickly changed my mind and opted for green as the base to create a more decayed appearance. I returned with gray to use as my highlight for capturing the details of the sculpture. I was uncertain about the eye color. Initially, I chose blue, but it didn't quite reflect what I wanted to express. Instead of trying out various colors by painting directly on my sculpture, I decided to take a picture, create a mock-up in Adobe Illustrator, and experiment with the color and pupil placement. In the end, I believe the yellow and the red really popped against the earthly tones of the rest of the sculpture. My mummy is complete and I'm extremely happy with the results. However, this project is not yet finished. One more step: the base.
I started with a wood plaque. I used a lighter nozzle, the one used for camping and lighting barbecues. It was the perfect stand. I created a notch in the base to accommodate the wooden plaque. This will later hold the nameplate. I followed up with wire for the waist grabber. I also recycled the plastic paint brush protectors. It was perfect for protection of my sculpture against any rubbing. I didn't want a black base, so I decided to glue sawdust to add texture. I naturally aimed for Egyptian sand as my base, so I began with brown, then added yellow, followed by orange. The finishing touch, a dash of brown for highlight and depth. Let's apply some more black paint to tidy up the edges and attach my wooden plaque. I had this laser engraved plate custom made, applied it to my base to make it look official. A phrase my mother would say to me when I was young showing her my art: it means nothing if it's not dated. That phrase has imprinted on me and I share it with my kids today. There it is, folks, a documentation of creating my mummy sculpture. It is always important to snap some photos, take some video to document your process. Personally, I just love to draw and sculpt, but it is important to set aside some time for these administrative tasks. It is worth it, and you will pat yourself in the back that you did. I'm very pleased that I can share my work and my journey with you. I invite you to follow me on Instagram to view all my latest posts. You can also find all my books currently available on Amazon. Don't forget to visit my website, vickumarstudio.com. Thank you everyone for taking the time to watch this video.